Welcome, Carolina Panther fans. This is Cat Scratch Playback.
Today on Playback, we discuss the wide receiver free agent market and the upcoming NFL Draft. It's March 12th, 2014, and this is Episode 1.
All right, welcome everyone to the very first edition of Cat Scratch Playback. With me, I have Clint Shankle, self-proclaimed draft expert. What's going on, Clint?
Also known as Shank Diddy, so everyone out there at SB Nation, how are you doing?
All right, I didn't think you want to claim that, but okay. All right, also I have with me Coach Chris Sinclair. What's going on, Chris?
What's going on?
Not much, man.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here, too. All right, so let's dive right in. Let's talk about free agency. That has been going absolutely nuts the past couple of days. And as everybody knows, Steve Smith, according to his agent, is no longer a Carolina Panther. And so Cam Newton really doesn't have anyone to throw to but Greg Olsen. So, tragedy. Let's talk a little bit about options for replacing Smitty because we're going to need someone. And just the question is who. Now, we've identified 3 potential landing spots for people whom we feel can replace Steve Smith. Let's talk a little bit about everyone's favorite topic. That's Hakeem Nicks. Now, Nicks, of course, he's had a lot of health issues. He's been dinged up, but he's never missed more than, I think, 6 games in the past 5 years. He does have he did have an off year last year with a very dysfunctional Giants team. Let's talk a little bit, Clint, about why you think Hakeem Nicks would be a great fit to throw to Cam or for Cam.
Well, I think that Hakeem Nicks matches what Cam Newton does. His skill set is to be able to box people out and make those chunk plays in those mid 15, 20, 25-yard chunk plays and the red zone, all the areas in which Cam Newton didn't have someone with the skill set to take advantage of and or absorb the touchdowns for him to be able to throw in that 30, 35-plus touchdown range and or alleviate some of those matchups and issues that the Carolina Panthers experienced earlier in the year. So Hakeem Nicks pretty much matches Cam Newton, his style, throwing outside the numbers.
There's no doubt when you look at his highlight tapes, there's nothing but back shoulder throw, back shoulder throw, back shoulder throw all day long. So, Chris, what do you think are the potential pitfalls for Hakeem Nicks landing? There's been some questioning his desire and his motivation last year. He's definitely part of dysfunction in New York. What do you think the pitfalls might be other than injury?
I think you have to look into the character. If you have people on that Giant staff, players that have been around him, you have to do good background work. You have to find out if he's really, after having early success in his career, if he's going to push it to be a great football player. Is he going to push it to try to be a champion? Is he going to be a leader? Because the situation Carolina Panthers are in right now, you're looking at a situation where their receiver room is depleted. You got Ted Ginn gone, Brandon LaFell gone, look like Steve Smith gone. So they're going to need somebody. They're obviously going to have to address that position in the draft. But if you're going to bring in a guy like Hakeem Nicks, you're going to bring him in with the idea that he's going to help mentor those young guys when they do come in. And he's going to be the leader of that room. Yeah, every room has got to have a solid veteran leader to set the example of how hard you're going to work.
And I don't think it's going to just have to be one veteran. I'm thinking Hakeem Nicks and possibly another, maybe a lower level veteran. The receiving room is empty.
Yeah, I think they, leaving the Hakeem Nicks talk, I think they have to definitely put their medical crew on overtime. You got to give them overtime pay. They got to look at all these guys, nicks, knocks, scratches. You can get a guy like Sidney Rice, and you got to find out, are his hips doing well? What's his knee situation? Because those are guys, Sidney Rice is a guy, I believe you can get that guy on a short-term situation where he's playing for his next contract, and he can come in and give you that same catching radius, posting up guys, and give you dynamic ability to go down the football field and back those safeties off.
I like Sidney Rice. Again, I agree with everything you said. But my main issue would be his concussion history. I mean, that's the big thing that really is concerning. So there's a few guys out there. I like Knicks. But that receiving core room just really needs a couple of veterans because without Steve Smith, Brandon LaFell, and even Hickson is his contract. He was on a 1-year deal. So I mean, they're just depleted.
Yeah, and some of those guys out there that are on the market, they have some question marks about them. If you're gonna look at some of these guys, from a health standpoint or a character standpoint, just about everybody that's out there, age, health, character, there's a knock on.
Yeah.
You can, and that's the deal with free agency. When you start delving in free agency, people tend to extend people they think are going to continue to do great things. They don't tend to throw them out there on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all these players are going to come with caveats. As you say, their team released them for a reason. They let them walk because they didn't feel like they were worthwhile. The real plus to all of this is, at least with Hakeem Nicks, is his surgeon has been over the years Dr. James Anderson, who's also the orthopedic surgeon for the Panthers. So they have a really high comfort level with him. So if he gives them a green light to Hakeem Nicks, then you gotta know he wouldn't mind coming home. Sidney Rice, for me, he's a little bit more of a question mark, not only just because of concussion issues, but a lot of his injuries over the years have been on soft tissue issues. You may have a situation where maybe his joints don't quite have that tightness that other players do, just because of the litany of issues that he has had over the years. He stays nicked up, kind of like Hakeem does. All right, so you mentioned some of those lower level guys. Let's talk about one of them who I'm a really big fan of, and I think could be had on the cheap and would be a great upgrade from Brandon LaFell, and that's James Jones of the Green Bay Packers. Now Jones, he's not the youngest guy in the world right now, but I think he still has a few years in the tank, and he gives you that physicality and that red zone threat that Brandon LaFell was supposed to be, but just never quite materialized into. Clint, what do you think about James Jones?
I like James Jones. I mean, he led the NFL in touchdowns in 2012. He showed the ability to win those contested balls, and so most of his touchdowns were just on back shoulder fades and ability to go get the football and to win outside the numbers. Again, a skill set that is when Cam Newton was coming out and I was projecting him into the NFL, I thought that he would be an outstanding play-action passer and ability to throw the football outside the numbers, and James Jones excels in that game.
2014, 14 touchdowns. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. And what did he have? I forget how many yards he had this year. What, 700-800 yards this year with Matt Flynn throwing to him. So that's nothing to sneeze at. What do you think, Chris?
I think he'd be a great pickup for the Carolina Panthers. The only thing is, it's got to come at the right price. It's going to come down to the price. If he wants to price himself out and he wants to get number one type money, then I don't think that's going to be a good match for them. And then you have to look into those other factors that we mentioned before. What's he like in the meeting room? Is he going to be a guy? Is he a technician? Is he going to be the type of technician that you want to bring and expose to young football players to where they're going to pick up on the things that he does and the way he goes about his business? So those are some of the things you have to look at. And I think to a certain degree, you may have to take a guy that is on his later on in his career that may not give you a ton of production to have that guy that's going to get in that room and show those young guys how to do it the right way. It's not just on having that position coach. You have to have a veteran in there to show them the right way to do things. And I think that's one of the quandaries you end up in this free agent wide receiver class, because if you're letting Steve Smith go, obviously you don't think for the price that he costs that he's going to be what you're looking for. He's older, and is he going to be getting those guys to perform well? Is he going to be picking up his teammates to get them, the technique that they need to dominate at this level? Is he working with him? So there's something there, a disconnect, where they're saying that's not what they want. And then you look at some of the players available. Some of these guys are young or haven't been known, don't have a public reputation of being in that position. You know, are you going to go out and try to get Eric Decker to leave the Jets and come play in Carolina? You know, he's going to, I think his first visit was up in New York. Are you going to talk to him and get him to come down to Carolina and visit? Is he that guy? You know, can he provide that for you? I don't know. Those guys don't have a reputation of being that leader just yet, some of these guys. And, you know, you have a guy out there like Santonio Holmes, and that's where you talk about the character issues. You know, is he going to be the leader of your room? Would you like to have him on your team as far as, like, what he can produce, his ability to produce? Working with the mobile quarterback, he seemed to do excellent working with the mobile quarterback that has some escapability. But are you going to want that guy as the leader of your wide receiver?
A guy that I really thought about was Nate Burleson. Now, Nate Burleson, he may be at the end, toward the back end of his career, but he's an outstanding guy for the receiving room. And he did display some abilities prior to breaking his arm in that car accident last year. But I mean, he really did show that he can be a decent number two at the right price. And I think that as the OTAs and all those things start to approach, you can probably get a guy like that, bring him into your locker room, and really be the type of guy that can show that leadership that you're talking about.
I think you'll probably be able to get almost any wide receiver for a cheap price this year, just because how many days are we in free agency now, and there hasn't been any wide receiver activity to speak of, nor running backs, but you've seen safeties, you know, flying all over the league. And that's just to say that the wide receiver position this year especially has been completely de-emphasized because of this just stacked draft class. So let's talk a little bit about a few of those prospects. We'll go into detail a little bit later on and in subsequent shows. Let's watch a clip.
All right, now it's time to talk about my favorite wide receiver in this year's draft class to match up with Cam Newton, and that's Mike Evans over at Texas A&M. Now, his story is very similar to Jimmy Graham in that he is a converted basketball player, and at 6'5", 233 pounds, throwing to him is like throwing to Mount Everest. Hey, he's a huge guy, soft hands, enormous catch radius, obviously jump ball player, great body control. One of the reasons why I think he's so compatible with Cam is because the past 2 years he spent being one of the favorite targets of Johnny Football. That's right, Johnny Manziel. So you know he doesn't mind a quarterback who colors outside the line sometimes, and he knows how to get open, uses those basketball player skills. He does those little things to help his quarterback. Now, he's a long strider with deceptive build-up speed, so he can challenge vertically. However, he's not going to blow by anyone. He's not going to blow past anyone out of his brakes. And he can lose his cool from time to time. But, hey, we know all about receivers like that in Carolina. That said, we're just picking nits at this point. He has prototypical size-speed combination and makes his game very similar to Vincent Jackson. And that's why he's number one on my wide receiver board, and I believe he could be a star on Sundays with Cam Newton throwing the ball.
Chris, what do you think? Mike Evans is your number one guy, or do you have someone else in mind? And if so, why not Mike?
I think it's flavor. I'm a Kelvin Benjamin guy. I think it's just when I project the players, Mike Evans to me has a lot of similarities with Vincent Jackson, who's a great, excellent wide receiver in the league, productive, and a huge threat. But I think when you look at a guy with the skill set that Kelvin Benjamin has, I think that he has the ability to be a Calvin Johnson and to do a lot of the things that Calvin Johnson does in the league, going over the middle, dynamic run after the catch. And I believe that my flavor, Kelvin Benjamin.
To me, Mike Evans is the safer pick, especially the situation the Panthers are in, without any wide receivers to speak of. I'd want to be as certain as possible that 28th pick works out. All right, Clint, what do you think? Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin, someone else?
Calvin Benjamin, 6'5", 240-pound wide receiver out of Florida State. This player has been extremely intriguing to me. I see a player that is typically categorized as an incomplete player, and to the notion that he does not have a diversity of routes. From that standpoint, I do agree. But I think there's a classic mistake being made with this player because he does not have the entire diversity of route running, and he never will, that means he cannot be a high-level player. I think the critical mistake is not looking at what he's dominant at. And what he's dominant at is the red zone, catching in tight area spaces, along the sidelines. These are the strengths of Cam Newton, and he is the perfect matchup for the quarterback. I use this comparison for those video game players out there. Those ever played double dribble and had that one shot that you shot from the top of the screen. Even though that one shot is the only one that can be consistent, you could be literally unstoppable doing that one thing. And I think that's kind of what I see with Calvin Benjamin. Even though he may not have that diversity of route running, what he is good at, he's dominant at.
Okay, so both of you hate Mike Evans, right?
I like him.
No, you don't. You admit it, you hate him. All right, so first of all, let me say that I do not hate Kelvin Benjamin. I think he does all the things well that syncs up with Cam's game, those back shoulder throws. The one thing that I really like about him that I think is underrated is his ball tracking ability. Those over-the-shoulder throws that Cam used to throw to Steve Smith all day for those huge chunk plays, just absolutely mind-blowing. Chris, why Kelvin Benjamin over, say, Sammy Watkins or someone else who's probably more conventional wisdom right now?
I just believe that at the end of the day, if I have to go with a determination, I'm going to go with size. Size is what's winning today in the NFL, and I believe, you can get plenty of yards after the catch. Sammy Watkins, he's a dynamic receiver, but at the end of the day, he's not 6'6", 240 pounds, and that's the difference. When you look at it, Sammy Watkins, fast, 40 times fast, but guess what? Last time I looked, Jimmy Graham, not as fast as Sammy Watkins, scoring a lot of touchdowns.
All right, so we have sort of the obvious picks out of the way. Everyone's talking about Kelvin Benjamin, Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, all these guys. Chris, there's one guy that you seem to like, and let's watch a little special about him.
A player I really like and I'm excited about, and I think is flying under the radar, is Dante Moncrief, wide receiver at the University of Mississippi. This kid is 6'2", 220 pounds with 4.4 speed. I think he compares favorably to Cordell Patterson out of the Minnesota Vikings, who had a special year up in Minnesota. His 4.4 speed translates well into football speed. He runs really smooth routes, and I think he separates easily from coverage. He's a dynamic receiver, and he has a chance to be a huge game breaker in the NFL. He posted a 40-inch vertical at the NFL Combine, and I think it shows up in his ability to snag the jump balls. When he goes up to get these jump balls, though, he's not just a jump ball receiver. He can go up and get these jump ball receivers and turn that into yards after the catch. Like Patterson, though, he has some areas of his game that he needs to clean up. At his size, he leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to blocking. He's got to become a lot more committed to that part of his game. He also needs to increase his concentration level. There's some times in some of these games where he loses focus and he'll drop a ball or two. With that said, this kid has started since he was a first game as a true freshman at Ole Miss. He's got 36 games of starting experience in the SEC. No history of health issues, durability concerns. I think when you look at him, I think people are really sleeping on this guy. I think he's got a chance to be a star in the league, and some people are grading him out as third round.
All right, Chris. Dante Moncrief, not a lot of people talking about him. I heard an NFL scout today say that he was the one player in the NFL draft that he was higher on than anyone else. Why do you agree with him?
Well, he just does everything right. When you look at his resume, everything is just set in place. He goes out, starts as a true freshman in the SEC. He's already produced 36 games in the SEC, in the hardest conference in all of college football, and this guy's out there getting it done, game in, game out. There's some people that have knocks on him about whether or not he didn't produce in some games, but I think that's commonplace. When you have a top receiver, team scheme against you, he's not had a guy, you don't see a Ole Miss quarterback during his tenure there that's projected to be a first-round, second-round type quarterback, a franchise-type guy. He didn't play with a guy like Johnny Manziel that does some dynamic things that get him freed up. So I think when you look at him and the fact that he took his on-field play of smooth routes, consistency, and then went to the combine, 40-inch vertical, 4.4 flat and a 40 with a top end of 4.37 and 6'2", 220. I think he's dynamic, and I don't understand why he's not more talked about along with these other guys.
Well, he definitely has the Marvin Jones syndrome when he had with the quarterback production. Definitely explosive, rangy guy. The funny thing is that the one knock on him was that that his top end speed maybe not what it needs to be, but what did he do? He went out in the combine and ran like a 4.42 or something like that. Just blew it up.